All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to look at a couple parts that feature the Revolve tool. We're going to start with the first part of the new measurements packet. We're going to create a new component and then create a new sketch. Now remember, with the Revolve tool, like I said yesterday, you have to only draw half the shape. So we're going to draw the top half of this rubber handle sleeve. I'm going to go to line, draw out my rough shape. Again, only drawing the top half of that handle sleeve. Now I'm going to add some dimensions. My overall width is 4.469 inches. The width of this inside handle here is 0.156 inches. I can see that the thickness of this top part is 0.25 inches. And finally, I can see that my outer diameter is 1.375. That's that diameter 1.375 OD. But that diameter is the distance all the way across the handle sleeve. Because we're only drawing half the handle sleeve, we need to do 1.375 divided by 2. And this is where Fusion 360 having the built-in calculator is really nice, because now we don't need to do the math. I'm going to finish our sketch, and then I'm going to come up here to the Create panel and click Revolve. When I do, you can see it says Profile, one selected, because there's only one shape, and it's asking me to select an axis. So that's what we want the middle of our rotation to be. I'm going to pick that guy right there, and now we're good. So a couple pieces of cleanup. First, there is an air vent on this side of the handle so that when you put it on or take it off the bar, air can escape. It doesn't make like a little balloon. So I'm going to create a new sketch and do center diameter circle. Can you go right here? And that has a diameter of 0.1875 inches. Finish. And I'm just going to press pull tool that guy through to make him a cut. Looks good. Now we also want to round off the edges. Those rounded edges are called fillets, and that's up here in the Modify panel. So I'm going to click Fillet. I'm going to click the edges that I want to round off and enter in my radius. My radius is 0.25 inches. And there we go. Finally, it does say that this is a rubber handle sleeve. So I'm going to right click on my component, go to Physical Material, and in the plastic folder, I can scroll down and find rubber as our material. I'm going to click and drag it over. Simple as that. We're done, and I'll save this as rubber handle sleeve. The next part with the Revolve tool is the Automoblox axle. And this one can look intimidating because there's a lot of dimensions, but it's really not that bad once you get into a rhythm. As usual, I'm going to start with new component and create a new sketch. I'm going to draw out my rough shape. Remembering that right here, it angles down. And there we go. Now, before we get started adding dimensions, I want to go over one or two quick things. First is I intentionally made a mistake right here. When you are going through and drawing out this shape, Because this is such a narrow angle, if you draw just a short line going up, it'll actually make that line perpendicular to the angled piece as opposed to straight up and down, which is what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this perpendicular symbol here, click delete. Now I can go through and add a vertical constraint and make that line run straight up and down. The other trick that I want to do before dimensioning, and this will help in the future, is this bottom line here and this top line here need to line up. But as you can see, I can click and drag that back and forth. So I'm going to come up here to my constraints panel and pick collinear. That's going to line up two lines, and I'm going to say, hey, that top line, this bottom line, click them and make them collinear. And now I try and click and drag, he won't move. And trust me, that'll be helpful in the future to do that now before you start adding your dimensions. So I'm going to go to select dimension, and I'm going to go ahead and we want to be methodical about this. There's a whole lot of dimensions and we need to make sure we don't miss any. So I'm going to start with all of my vertical dimensions first. Let's see now, if I start from the middle to right here, on the paper, it says that that has a diameter of 0.19, and that's from the top of the part to the bottom of the part. Because I'm only drawing the top half, I'm going to dimension it as 0.19 divided by 2. You can see it shrinks my part down, and now I can keep going. From my middle to this guy, on the paper it says 0.25, so this is going to be 0.25 divided by 2. My third vertical dimension on this side is 0.29. Because I'm only drawing the top half, 0.29 divided by 2. On the left side of the sketch, we've got this height right here has a diameter of 0.19, which means it's going to be 0.19 divided by 2 if I'm only drawing the top half. The 0.25 right here will divide by 2. To the top of this little edge has a diameter of 0.30. 0.30 divided by 2. And finally, my overall height has a diameter of 0.40, so 0.4 divided by 2. Now let's see, that dropped this angled part down, so I'm going to press escape to get out of dimension mode, and I'm just going to kind of redraw him down so that when I add my dimensions, it doesn't get locked up top. Looking at our drawing file, there is one more set of vertical dimensions, and that has to do with this angled line itself. It's very small, but this tiny little shelf here is going to be 0.01 inches. And from the bottom of the angle to the top point of the angle is also going to be a height of 0.01 inches. It's a very slight angle. Now that I have all my vertical dimensions done, let's add our horizontal dimensions. Let's see. This first step here is 0.05. Then from this edge right here, looks like it's 0.25. Right in here is 0.19. Continuing across to this one right here, 0.33 inches. Oh, you can see that sort of pushed the bottom out, so I'm going to press escape and redraw him. I'm going to stretch him out just a little. Now this dimension right here is 0.05. My middle dimension right here is 0.07. And finally, my overall width from my right all the way over to my left is 0.88 inches. Now, as long as we didn't miss anything, all of our lines should be black, which they are. That means we're fully constrained. We can finish our sketch, go to an isometric view, and I'm going to click Revolve. I'll pick this middle line, and now we have our axle connector. There is one more component we're going to add, and that is a little notch that's cut into the side here to allow the axle to contract and expand when you connect the part. So I'm going to create new sketch, and I'm going to click it on the side here. Now I want to draw a rectangle to cut this shape out, but I want to make sure that that rectangle is right in the middle. So what I'm actually going to do is click the arrow next to Create on the Create panel, and you can see we've got a couple different types of rectangles. I'm going to use Center Rectangle, which lets me start at the middle, and now when I draw the rectangle, it expands out from the middle, staying centered. Let's see, I'm going to make him 0.04 inches wide. And the height doesn't matter as long as it's taller than the part because we're just cutting material away. Finish sketch. I'm going to come to my press pull tool. Make sure to select the whole rectangle. And then I'm going to click and drag him in negative 0.2 inches to cut away that material. Finally, the Automoblocks cars do have plastic connectors. So I'm going to go to my physical material here. And we'll just go with ABS plastic. I'll change my appearance. Let's give them some paint. Or let's see, plastic. Oh, they just have white. So we'll go with paint, glossy, make them green. Why not? And those are our first two Revolve tools.